Hi, welcome to Starting with Chapter 1. My name is Heather Downen. Peterkin, a colorful elf, brings music and hope everywhere he goes with the aid of his magic pipe. It gives him the power to call any animal to him and even to transform one creature into another. This is just what the evil Grand Duke needs to rid his village of its never-ending rats. But when Peter turns the rats into stars, the Grand Duke is still as mean as ever. Discover the pipe's true magic as our hero uses it to inspire and save the whole village. Listen as Therese Miller, the Executive Director of Advocates for Children, reads The Pied Piper's Magic, written by and used with the permission of Steven Kelloggs.
Hello, I'm Therese Miller, Executive Director with Advocates for Children, and I'm going to read The Pied Piper's Magic by Steven Kelloggs. One day, long ago and far away, a small elf in search of work came upon a tumble-down house. The elf was so poor that his clothes were made of rags and patches. But he was a good-natured fellow, and when he spotted a woman slumped on the porch, he approached her with a hopeful smile. "I'm Peterkin," he said. "With your permission, I could spend a few hours making useful around your cottage. Perhaps you might be willing to pay me a penny or two?" "I'm Elbavole," grumbled the woman. "I'm a retired witch who was a worthless witch even back in the days when I was a working witch. I haven't a penny to pay you for anything. Begone!" Peterkin had never met such a dreary person, and he decided to try to cheer her up. "Never mind the penny," he said. "I'll just spend a few minutes tidying the place, and then I'll be on my way." The elf worked so quickly that he seemed to be everywhere at once, and he didn't quit until the cottage glowed from the cellar to the chimney. For a moment, Elbavole almost smiled. "Little elf," she said, "I am grateful for your kindness. Although I haven't a penny to pay you, let me give you this pipe. I was told long ago that it has a magical power, but I have never discovered what that power is. Perhaps you can." "Oh, thank you, Elbavole," cried Peterkin. But to his dismay, the woman's dark mood returned. "Leave me to my solitude," she muttered. "I am lonely, old, and worn out. Go away." The pied elf set out again to look for work, but Elbavole's gloom followed him. He studied the pipe and said, "I wish your magic could have made that sad lady smile." To cheer himself up, he tried to play a few notes, but to his surprise, the pipe made the sounds of letters. Even better, when he played butterflies, or bees, or bluebirds, those creatures mysteriously appeared. Next he tried deer, D-E-E-R. "Amazing!" cried the elf. He was so excited that he flipped over backward. The pipe responded by reversing the letters and singing reed, R-E-E-D. The deer was instantly transformed into a reed. Peterkin experimented by flipping once again. The pipe sang deer, and sure enough, the reed turned back into a deer. Filled with wonder, Peterkin exclaimed, "From now on, enchanted pipe, you shall be my traveling companion and my friend." He happily resumed his journey, so caught up in his pipe playing that he forgot all about dreary Elbavole. Many miles later, the forest pathway joined a winding road that led the elf to the gates of a dark city. Clouds of foul-smelling smoke belched from the chimneys and hovered menacingly over the rooftops. As Peterkin entered the gates, he was amazed to see thousands and thousands of rats. They scuttled everywhere, ignoring the children who were trying to shoo them away. "Where are your parents?" Peterkin asked the children. "The Grand Duke has ordered them to work all day and all night in his factories," replied the children sadly. "He rules the city, and everyone fears him." As for the rats, the elf was told that the Grand Duke had promised 1,000,000 golden florins to anyone who could get rid of them. Until the prize was won, however, the children had been ordered to patrol the streets and sweep the rats away from the public monuments. "We'd better get back to work," wailed the smallest girl. "The Grand Duke sends people to the dungeon if he finds them standing idly about." "I will earn that reward," cried Peterkin, "and then I will give it to you and your parents so you can leave this gloomy city and live happily together as parents and children should." He lifted his pipe and played "Rats, rats, R-A-T-S, rats." Instantly, rats began pouring from cellars, windows, and rooftops. As growing herds of rats swarmed into line behind Peterkin, the excited children forgot that they had been forbidden by the Grand Duke to interrupt their parents' work, and they burst into the factories. "Come quickly," they shouted. "A Pied Piper is rounding up the rats, and he has promised to give us the reward." By nightfall, every rat in the city had been led to the Grand Duke's palace. Remembering the deer and the reed, the elf played rats, rats, R-A-T-S. Then he flipped over backwards. Star, star, S-T-A-R, sang the pipe. The crowd gasped, then cheered, as the rats became shimmering stars. The cheering aroused the Grand Duke. "Silence!" he roared. "Return to the factories at once." "Wait!" cried the children. "It's a celebration. The rats are gone, and the piper has earned the reward." "Ha!" scoffed the Grand Duke. "For inciting a riot and disrupting my sleep, the piper's reward shall be 50 years in the dungeon." "You are even more miserable than Elbevol," cried Peterkin. "Elbevol? Who is Elbevol?" bellowed the Grand Duke. Suddenly the Pied Piper was struck by an idea. Peterkin played a single word, strong and clear. Star, S-T-A-R. He followed it with his highest backward flip yet. "Rats!" sang the pipe, R-A-T-S. Overhead, one especially large and sparkly star exploded, and a shower of chattering rats plummeted onto the balcony, flattening the Grand Duke. Peterkin played rats, R-A-T-S, and the animals leaped to obey, dragging and shrieking Grand Duke behind them. The parents and children followed as the rest of the stars swooped down to light their way through the city gates, into the forest, and finally to Elbevol's cottage. "Elbevol, wake up!" cried Peterkin. "I have discovered the secret of the pipe's magic." He played Elbevol, Elbevol, E-L-B-A-V-O-L, and with a triumphant laugh he flipped over backwards. "Lovable, lovable, lovable," sang the pipe. Elbevol stared at the elf in amazement. "Lovable?" she asked. "Yes, truly lovable," said Peterkin, and for the first time in her life, the woman smiled. The glow of that smile surrounded the entire group, including the Grand Duke. The rats faded away as he gazed in wonder at Elbevol. Then, for the first time in his life, the Grand Duke smiled back. "Lovable," he whispered. Suddenly, he and Elbevol, finding both themselves and each other lovable, were transformed. Their loneliness and unhappiness disappeared, and they fell joyfully into each other's arms. "I have no wish to return to the palace," said the Grand Duke. "Wise and noble piper, please accept this key to the city as the reward for your heroic deeds." But the Pied Piper presented the key to the parents. He asked them to transform the city into a lovable place where they and their children could live together happily. Elbevol and the Grand Duke were married, and after the wedding feast, Peterkin resumed his journey, eager to discover new uses for his magic pipe. A year later, he returned to the city. Some of the children spotted him making his way across the valley, and with cries of joy, they ran to welcome him. It warmed Peterkin's heart to see that the buildings now glowed from the cellars to the chimneys, and that the streets were filled with laughter and sunlight and music. And that's the end of our story. Thank you for listening.
We hope you enjoyed today's story. If you would like to read more stories by Steven Kellogg, be sure to check out Can I Keep Him?, Millions to Measure, and The Mysterious Tadpole at your school library, public library, or local bookstore. Stay tuned as Lori Erfmeyer, BCSC Parent-Child Specialist, presents this month's parenting tip. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Starting with Chapter 1.
This book was an old tale turned into a beautiful story. Steven Kellogg certainly made this a sweet, loving tale. I hope as parents we always strive to show our children how to spread love and kindness just as Peterkin, the elf, did with his magic flute. If we don't set a good example of spreading positiveness to our children, then who will? All the good life lessons start at home.